What are you doing? Go lay down. What are you doing? Go lay down. I don't need you. No, I don't need you. Do you want me to put you outside? Do you want me to put you outside? Do you want to be up here with me? Is this what you want? If that's what you want, we can do that. Is this you? Okay, cool. Yay. So, I have Rosie. Maybe that'll make it easier for me. What do we think? Alrighty. Squire by Tamora Pierce. Third book in the Protector of the Small series. Main character, Kel of Mindlin. Kel is a young woman, first in over 100 years, pursuing her knighthood without disguising her gender, which is what the last Lady Knight had to do in order to get her knighthood. I absolutely do love this book. Tamora Pierce is a fantastic writer, fantastic craft, and fantastic world building. This has shockingly slipped from possibly my favorite in the quartet to third in the quartet, and the only reason it isn't fourth in the quartet is because there's more of it for me to enjoy. First Test, the shortest book in the series, first book in the series, is better edited than this one, but there's more for me to dig my teeth into in this one, so that is why it's in third place of the quartet. Nevertheless, Protector of the Small is among Tamora Pierce's best writing. Primarily young adult fantasy writer, publishing between 1983 and 2018, the Protector of the Small series falls right in the middle, right around the time that the Harry Potter series was taking off. My last video was really long. I'm not wanting this one to be as long. Spoilers, because I always have spoilers. I don't have a script. I say what I want to say about this series that I know very well and love very much. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for checking this out. That is what we have going on. You might notice a slight change in the lighting. I liked that intro. I didn't like the rest of the video. It was too close to what I did with Paige, where I went through all my notes and gave a extended summary and thoughts and headcanon. Forget that. Let's talk about what I said I was going to talk about. A very straightforward summary of this entire book. Kel becomes the squire to Raoul. Raoul we like. He is a good mentor. He is a good role model for Kel. The book focuses on her training, her growing, her friendships and relationships, and developing her positive public reputation realm-wide. At the end of the book, she's knighted. That's the plot. The problem I had when I was recording 10 hours ago is there's so much that I want to say about this book. It's third place, and I still love it, and I still want to tell you everything about everything inside of it. You might as well read it. So I just did get myself a couple of notes to highlight the elements that I mentioned, the writing, the craft, the world building that I really enjoy, and then to get to the point, what was it about this book that made it slip this reread as compared with the other three books in the quartet. This, as I said, is young adult literature, so the standard American English that's in this is incredibly accessible, and anything that's really unfamiliar is provided sufficient but not excessive context so that you can continue to read and figure it out, or continue to read without being stumbled by it. This book is by no means a comedy. Kel is training to become a knight. She is in combat. She is exposed to a lot of post-battle situations, rescue and cleanup work, as well as military action of her own. Nevertheless, there is humor from beginning to end. Humor is necessary largely to cope with trauma in a lot of ways. Tamora Pierce does not make light of the loss, the grief, the pain, the violence that's in here or implied by what's in here, because again, it is young adult, so it doesn't necessarily get graphic, but it also doesn't pull punches. She holds that balance. And I mentioned the humor in the past. I can break out laughing just remembering certain scenes and dialogue lines. In regards to the writing and the crafting, there are some errors in here, errors that Tamora Pierce has acknowledged in terms of editing. A birthday that sort of just kind of gets skipped past. So Kel should be 14, 15, 16, 17 in this book. She's 14, 16, 17, 18 in this book. And then one of her friends is not mentioned by name, referenced by location anywhere in this entire book. I'm a writer too. Mistakes happen. I have created casts of characters and then had to fold some of them together into one or fewer characters because I didn't need so many. So I kind of think that one friend out of the trio that I mentioned in the video about Paige, I think perhaps something like that happened to him in the editing process. Those things don't trip up the story, they don't hold anything up, but they're in there. It's not perfect, and that shows in this book that isn't in the previous 2 books. That caveat aside, Tamora Pierce has a great deal of subtlety in her writing. This example that I'm about to give, as I'm thinking about explaining it, feels like a stretch, but it popped out so distinctly to me, I'm still going to share it to you, and it's this. In the first chapter, Neal is sharing with Kel that the new Knightmaster he has is Lady Alana, the first female knight. In Kel's heart of hearts, she a little bit secretly hoped that perhaps Alana would choose her as a squire, even though she had never chosen a squire up till that point. So Neal and Kel have their conversation about that situation, and as things calm down, Neal sort of throws his legs over the arm of the chair, like he sort of sits sideways and gets himself comfortable and sits in that way. The reason it stands out to me is because of the only other time that I can recall Tamora Pierce having a character do that is the character of Alana in the... oh gosh, I don't remember right now if it was the 4th book in the Song of the Lioness series or the 3rd book of the Song of the Lioness series. I can remember the scene, but I'm second guessing the book that it's in. Okay. That took me forever to find, but I was right. It was the 4th book where Alana does the same thing, where she's sitting in a chair and then she shifts to hook her legs over the arm of the chair. Last year, when I was rereading the series, I started with the Song of the Lioness series. I got to that scene in the book and I noticed that particular motion of Alana's because it was the first time she ever sat in such a way in the entire series, and it was such a clear indication of her comfort level in that moment because who she was with was her twin. But because she and her twin have spent most of the last 8 years separated, or maybe even 9 years at that point in the series, it was important to demonstrate with as few words as possible a level of comfort that Alana didn't show with anyone else. So Alana had this particular sitting gesture that I noticed around her twin, and then immediately after having his first meeting with Alana to be his Knightmaster, Neal also sits in the same way. That's how close and comfortable he is with Kel, in my opinion, from that level of craft, that level of writing detail. And similarly, Neal noticed in Paige when Cleon started reacting differently to Kel and how the other boys were behaving around Kel, and he didn't say anything in Paige. But when that same behavior persists in Squire, Neal comes up behind Kel and says, "Did Cleon kiss you for midwinter luck?" Kel still hasn't realized that Cleon is interested in her. Neal clearly has, and it's also foreshadowing what's going to happen within the next few pages there. The last example, something that persists, is Kel using the practice yards to work off her stress. In the very first chapter, she still doesn't have a Knightmaster, and what she's worried about is she's going to be attached to a desk knight, someone like Sir Gareth or Sir Miles, who work directly for Jonathan as more advisors than going out into the field, which is really what Kel wants to do. So in order to sort of put that stress away, she goes out to practice with the lance, and luckily for her, that's where Lord Raoul finds her to offer to be her Knightmaster, and she gladly accepts. And then a few chapters later, Kel's maid Lalasa, also her best female friend, released from her girlhood, suffered an injustice partway through Paige, the 2nd book in the Protector of the Small series. Kel had to accept it because Lalasa asked her to. In this book, justice is delivered via the Chamber of the Ordeal. And even though Lalasa is satisfied, Kel isn't, and goes out to the practice yards to work off her stress. And in that way, it demonstrates that although working off her stress in the practice yards does build up her strength and her skill and the level of respect that she kind of has among her peers, it's also kind of a means of self-abuse for Kel. And one of the adults around her directly confronts her about that in that moment. So those are just some quick examples of the sort of crafting and writing that is present throughout the entire series. It's these threads and these seeds that are connected to each other. And when you just read that one thing of legs thrown over the chair, it's not just that one moment. It's what does that mirror that was shown before? Another thing I said that I really liked about this book is the expanding world building. So there's a grand progress in this book because there's going to be a diplomatic marriage between a princess of the Yamani Islands and the crown prince of Tortall, where the story takes place. And to introduce the new princess to the kingdom, this is the grand progress. It's also a way to do a census and road work and some other practical things. It's also a way to make an impression on the populace and bring the king and nobility a little bit closer to all the people. And so in the background of all that is the fact that people are seeing Kel. Kel doesn't think about the fact that she is sort of on display because that's not how she's trying to present herself, but she is. People want her to fail, so they're watching her. People want her to succeed, so they're watching her. People are interested in this one girl jousting against all these guys, and they are inspired, some of them, to pursue their knighthood based on conversations in this book. And then the Immortals, there's a series, the second series in the Tortallan world is the Immortals, when they are reintroduced to the human realm, essentially. They are present more in First Test than Page. In Page, actually, there's really only discussions about the Immortals and one encounter with a dragon, a baby dragon, in the first chapter, just to let the reader know that this is the level of fantasy world you are in fact in. In the first book, there are fighting against Spydrins right at the beginning and the end of the book. Spydrins being 5-foot tall spider creatures, but with human heads and human level intelligence. The human level intelligence thing, that's not something that's actually in the book, but that is something that I gathered over the course of reading it and also reading Tortall, A Spy's Guide. Most of the immortal creatures have a higher level of cognition in the first place, but if it's got a human head, it's at least equal to human level intelligence. That's something that, like I said, it isn't highlighted within the text, but realizing that adds context and depth to all of the battles and encounters with part human creatures. Stormwings are another example. They are mostly metallic birds with human torsos and heads. They are nightmare creatures of the battlefield that you see more in the next book. There's brief encounters with unicorns. We see some sponge sugar winged horses. That is a foreshadowing for the series that comes after this one. There's the baby griffin right here on the cover. Kel takes care of this baby griffin for almost a year. She doesn't give him a name because he's a wild creature, and Dane, the wild mage, the protagonist of the Immortals series, spends months searching for his parents. The griffin serves several writing purposes and several character purposes for Kel. He's ungrateful. He hurts her. He hunts her other animals, her sparrows. He hurts her dog. He makes life hard for her. He is a constant threat because if Dane doesn't find his parents before his parents find Kel and him, they will kill Kel, presumably because they will think that she has held their child captive. And it's like a magical sense. It's not something that can just be washed off. Luckily, that doesn't happen. Dane finds them. Dane explains the situation. They don't kill Kel. They repay her with a bag full of magical feathers that are very useful more than once. But how did Kel end up with the baby griffin? The Centaurs. So in the third chapter, I think it is, there's a village that is attacked by a mixed human and centaur band. One of those centaurs has this baby griffin that he killed a human merchant for. Who knows who originally stole the baby griffin. The centaurs, who were outlaws, had belonged to a herd of centaurs who had a treaty with the Tortallan crown, and that included the headman of the herd providing some of his warriors in reparations in the event of any of his centaurs attacking Tortallan citizens. As an example of their human level intelligence, there it is. They have the capacity to make their treaties and honor those contracts. In the spirit of keeping this video much more condensed than the last one, those are some examples of world building and writing and crafting elements of this particular book that I enjoy and love. So then here I am with this book that I do love. What is it about it that caused it to slip from before I reread it thinking, this is my favorite because there's so much more in it, because it covers so much more time than The Lady Knight. But there's no question in my mind that this is the lesser of the 4 books. Now, why is that? The answer that I've come to, and if you've read this series, you're more than welcome to disagree with me on this, but there's something missing in the tension of this. As I said earlier, she becomes a knight at the end of this, and I feel like that's not a true question in this book. In first test, Kel is on probation. Will the training master allow her to stay and complete her page training at the end of her first year? Will he agree that she's proven her ability to keep up with the boys? Okay, you know what it is? So in that book, you as the reader might be quite sure that she's going to be allowed to stay because it's the first book and then the next book is Paige. But Kel psychologically remains unsure through the entirety of the book. That tension is real for her and it is palpable through the book. And it's also tightly edited. Each chapter is very contained and there's no wasted words. You can get through it. The second book, similarly, after Paige comes Squire. It's not truly a question, will Kel pass her big exams to become a Squire? It's what's going to happen along the way in that journey. Well, the actual tension that carries that book is not Kel's character growth, it's Lalasa's. You watched my Paige video, Lalasa, she's there from the very beginning to the very end. That book is her journey, and Kel is the one to help facilitate her growth into Lalasa, the businesswoman that she becomes. And then the fourth book, without getting into it too much, they're in open war once they reach the fourth book. Kel has some information, so she's afraid of something that's going to happen through the entire book until that shoe drops. That tension, for me, holds, even knowing how the book ends. So in this one, that isn't there. I don't find any of those in this one in the same way. In Paige, like I said, it's not will she become a Squire, it's what are the obstacles between her and becoming a Squire. And there is a great obstacle at the end that, is the curveball perhaps for the reader who's truly coming in blind of, oh, will this actually prevent Kel from successfully becoming a Squire? She's so close to it in this one. It just isn't a question of will she become a knight. It's the only barrier between her finishing her Squire training and becoming a knight is going through the chamber of the ordeal of knighthood that all knights have to go through. If you know the series, as I do, I can read it when Kel goes to the chamber, not inside of it, but to the doors of it every year leading up to her own ordeal. Finally, she has a vision from it. Those visions, more writing craft brilliance, tell you about her, where she's at in her journey, the things that she's afraid of, and they are building up to what is the tension that holds over in the fourth book. But what they're ratcheting up in this one bears through in the fourth one. It's not in this one. They talk about Scanra in this one. Scanra is building its military forces up to the last couple of chapters. You have a summer where Kel is constantly fighting raiders, but it's still removed from Kel's personal journey. That military conflict that is ongoing doesn't feel directly connected to Kel's personal journey at this point, even though it is, and you can know it if, as a reader familiar with the story, it's not in the page, at least not for me this time through. So I think that's what it is. And despite all of what I just said, and however that may sound, it still doesn't take anything away from it. This book can make you laugh. This book can make you cry. This book can help you learn something. This book can give you perspective on things. You don't have to agree with Kel or her perspective on things. Not everyone in the story does. She meets people who never do like her, but because she's always consistent and true to herself, people who don't like her will still come to respect her. And that's everything I have written down. Let me not keep you here any longer. Check out this series, check out this book, check out this author, please and thank you. If you're familiar with them, let me know. Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you with Lady Night.